Hey guys, Youthful Yields here. Today I'm going to be making a video on Group A distributions. Apologies for getting this out a little bit later today. Crazy week at work so far. But let's get straight into it. I actually just want to make a slight disclaimer. So for some of these, I am just pulling straight from the email list now. So that's all of the funds from YieldMax down. LFGY, GPTY, and SDTY all did not have a fund or a distribution rate listed in the email. And I would like to address something because I know a lot of people make complaints, maybe not my channel particularly, but complaints about people just making videos about the distributions. And while that's valid, because you could just sign up for the email list yourself, I go over also some other stats, such as the trailing 3-month average, and also share these charts with you guys. So, in my opinion, if someone were to make a video like this, I'd find it beneficial, and that is why I'm creating it for you guys today. So, moving on with those in mind, let's go over to the distributions. So, starting out, QDTY does not have distribution, so we're just going to skip that. There's no distribution at all, so yep. SDTY had a 22.78% distribution. Now I do have here, this is XDTE's distribution, which is its competitor, 22.70. So really close, really close. The only thing I'd be interested between these funds is actually how well YieldMax SDTY holds its NAV, because as we know, with some of their funds at YieldMax, they're not particularly amazing at holding NAV. So we'll see how that holds up. XDTE, I can type it in here, is pretty well. Like it performs pretty well at holding its NAV. You can see here. There's a slight downtrend, but not by much. But to compensate that, it looks like the annualized yield is actually going up a little bit. Maybe that's just offset by these 260 months, because technically these last few distributions have not been amazing, so we will see. But yeah, SDTY, that's their first one, so I can't really go over that much, but let's move into GPTY. So GPTY, current distribution seems to be 35% almost. You can see there 35%, and that seems in line with the last few distributions. That's actually just shy of the first distribution, so yeah, nothing to really compare here on these first few funds because they're pretty new. But LFGY is 61.88%, which is pretty dang good. I mean, I know a lot of people have been talking about this recently, so it's averaging out to 66%, which is pretty high. We'll say, though, that the share price does have a slight depreciation, but to be fair, that was just the start of it. So that's that. Moving on to YieldMax, my personal favorite fund. From YieldMax, 56%. So that's pretty amazing. Seems like we have a 55% average. So that's, huge, right? So we're staying right on average. And, yeah, I mean, there's a slight downtrend if you can slightly see it, right? But overall, I would say it's pretty stable in terms of the NAV. The yield does seem to me maybe having a little bit of down, as you can see here, because it used to be in the 60s. Pretty regularly, and now it's kind of down in the 50s, so that's kind of interesting to take a look at, but still above a lot of other funds, so that's what's important. Speaking of a lot of other funds, YMAG, this one I think had like a absolutely terrible distribution last week. Yeah, so we have a 14% distribution. Sorry, I had to fix something real quick. As the last distribution. Averages out to a 41% distribution, 3-month trailing average. That's just below that, so not amazing. The last two distributions of this fund have been pretty crap, And you can kind of see that over time, despite the share price staying roughly about the same. But yeah, a lot of people were saying a few months ago, oh, YieldMax so much better than YieldMax. Now they're saying, man, now they're saying. That's why having diversification is actually pretty nice. Moving on to Tesla, which is a huge fund, right? 88% 3-month trailing average this month, this month, unfortunately, a 62% distribution. So that's very similar to last month, but that's just what we got. Moving on to Crash, CRSH, we have a 75% distribution. Compare that against the 3-month average of 66%. That's a bit up. Not too bad. The month before last, we got a 79% distribution. So it just kind of depends, obviously, being an inverse fund. But honestly, not terrible. The only thing that's terrible is the share price. That thing is going straight down. So hopefully no one is really attached to this fund. But moving on to GUI. GUI had a 35% distribution, which actually beats its 3-month average, I think, barely. And yeah, not too bad. The share price is pretty much dead even the last few distributions, so can't complain about that either. Especially for a pretty stable fund, right? Like 35% is pretty insane. YBIT, looking at YBIT now. YBIT had a 60% distribution with a 3-month average of 84%. So we are going down a little bit, unfortunately, but that's going to happen over time with Bitcoin losing more and more volatility, right? I don't know if you guys noticed that. Maybe the Bitcoin lovers out there will disagree with me, but I was telling you guys a couple months ago that I think Bitcoin's going to start dying down in April. So, just saying. Moving on to OARC, a 50.3% distribution. That's above its 3-month average by quite a lot. So that's about even with its distribution in November. And that share price has a slight uptrend, which is pretty nice. So nothing to complain about there. Moving on to Zomo, or what is this? Shoot, it's blank in my head. ExxonMobil, there we go. ExxonMobil, 22% distribution with a 3-month average of 30%. So we're obviously lower there, which is kind of unfortunate. But that is what it is. You can see the share price is slightly decreasing over time. So, yeah. And then also, I did notice this. The return of capital is also 0% on this fund. So, yeah, nothing crazy. Because we're in a new year, it's probably... Well, I mean, people care about their taxes, right? So, SNOY, I think Snowy, that's what we call it. 58% with a 3-month average of 62%. So we are lower than the average, but the last 2 distributions have really brought that average down, and we're actually above those last 2. So keep that in mind. It's not going to be amazing, because technically before that it was 40%, so something obviously happened during that. I think what it was actually just the Bitcoin innovation as well. That kind of happened. That I think it really started jumping there around the time of the election. So TSMY, we can come over here. Also, the share price for that fund is appreciating, which is nice. But TSMY, 42% with a 3-month average of 43%. So this has actually been pretty dang stable in terms of the NAV. Well, I say stable, but not too many jumps, which is pretty nice, respectable. And the share price has been pretty much dead even as well. So, not too bad. Feet, here we go. Feet has not been out for so long, but we have 1 distribution in the books. The last distribution was 59%. We have a 53% distribution this month. Not too bad. And Phoebe, this one was one of them that people, and including myself, were actually pretty excited for. So last month we had a 44% distribution, but this month we only have a 31% distribution, which really, that kind of sucks, because these two funds people thought were going to kind of break the mold in terms of YieldMax, but it's not really appearing that way. And actually, I want to take a look here at Feet, their last price. We could just take a look at the last month here. Down 5% on Feet, unfortunately, and Phoebe down 5% as well, almost. So that really sucks, because again, I knew a lot of people were trying to rely on these. They were hoping to rely on them, especially the Phoebe, because they thought, well, they hold both the synthetic calls as well as the actual funds themselves. Or sorry, they hold the YieldMax funds as well as the underlying funds. So they thought that maybe that could, offset each other, which, I mean, again, I was hoping that was the case, because I was hoping some kind of competition within YieldMax itself, or YieldMax itself for YieldMax. So unfortunately, no. And as predicted, one of the things that I mentioned that I was very worried about with this fund, or these two funds, was the rotation. Now, these only rotate one time per month. So literally, if a distribution happens and the next following 4 weeks out of the month are just absolute crap for that fund, I'm pretty sure they can't. Well, in the prospectus, I'm pretty sure it says something like they only rebalance once per month. I think it's like the 27th or something like that. But then you just kind of get that terrible premium out of these funds. So that could be something that happened here. In fact, we could technically look at the holdings here. I don't know how much it's going to show us. Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to see in this view because you can't really see the last month, unfortunately. But I guess we can see the 52-week range. You can see, though, that they are holding the same funds. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, I am going to end the video here. Hopefully you got some value out of it. And yeah, I think we're really close to 100 subscribers. Just really exciting for the channel. We're at 98 subscribers as I'm looking right now. So, I never asked this before, but if you guys find value in the channel, feel free to subscribe. I know I'm putting this at the end of the video, so there's probably not many of you even watching still, but for those that are and aren't subscribed, consider it. But that's it for me, guys, and as always, I wish you a wealthy future.